Satya, the ceremony of introducing anybody, and particularly Satya, is really not only redundant but almost embarrassing here. How can I introduce him? Introduce everyone here, including introduce all of us to the important philosophy. How can I introduce him? But still, great pleasure to be part of this session, and Satya's presentation is something he will talk about, but it seems to me that in the title there is something like zero potentiality in God or something like that, right? Nil potentiale, yes. Something like zero potentiality in God. We will talk about it. With Satya, I always say that when philosophy is defined by the Greeks as something like love of wisdom, but there is a love of that love. No one loves philosophy more than Satya, it seems to me. Really, always such a pleasure. So Satya.
Thank you for this great introduction.
Satya, would you use that mic? Maybe that works here. And if you could.
Are you ready? Hello?
Ah, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right. The title is deo nil potentiale, and you can see it means in God there is no potentiality. This is a phrase that is used by Kierkegaard in his lecture notes on the lecture notes of Schelling's lecture. Lectures on the philosophy of mythology and revelation in 1841 and 1842. So it's a very important set of lectures. Schelling joined the University of Berlin in the very chair that Hegel used to hold till his death in till 1831, when he died of cholera. It's a very celebrated and much publicized set of lectures by Schelling to counteract against the bad influence of Hegelian philosophy. And as you know, that Hegel, by the time he died, he became the official philosopher, as they say, of Prussia of 19th century. Kierkegaard is one of those celebrities who attended Schelling's lectures, along with people like Humboldt and people like that. Now, in deo nil potentiale, this phrase Kierkegaard uses in reference to Schelling's lecture, Schelling's concept of absolute without potentiality. Now, there are two problems. One problem is the identity, and another problem is void, according to the topic of the lecture. I will not so much talk about individuation or identity, and it's because it's a very, very difficult problem, the problem of individuation, that I have to take up another set of text by Schelling, basically 1809, famous text by Schelling. It's called The Essence of Human Freedom. There, in fact, Schelling is discussing the problem of individuation in relation to the great problem of freedom. Right. Instead of the question of individuation, I will be concerned more on the problem of, I don't know whether it is good to translate the concept of kenosis to void. Kierkegaard and Schelling both would like to translate it in terms of emptying out. There is a kind of, one must listen to the viability of emptying out. In void, it seems to be more like a kind of nominalization of the void, or maybe voiding rather than void. So I begin with the following hypothesis, that the dominant tendency of Western metaphysics determines being as potentiality. If you talk of modernity, the modernity that has secularized the theological concepts in terms of immanent theodicy of history, understands and determines potentiality as subject. Now, this potentiality is not one potentiality among so many other potentialities of being. In other words, it is not one attribute of being, but the very potentiality of being at all. This epoch of modernity, and along with it, the Occidental metaphysics as such, has now come to a closure, both in the sense of having fulfilled itself and having terminating itself thereby, opening to a sense of pure exteriority or pure transcendence. I would like to show in bold strokes, given the limitation of space, that it is in Schelling, in a way, for the first time and in its own way, in a singular and irreducible way, such closure comes to make itself manifest. In other words, it comes to a certain phenomenality. This phenomenalization takes place precisely at the instance where the instance itself is an abyss, a wink, or an eschatological opening to eternity, when the idea of actuality without potentiality presents itself in Schellingian words, which is an idea that interrupts and momentarily arrests the university of the discourse of metaphysics or ontology. This means none other than the following: the phenomenalization at the closure of metaphysics, or the phenomenalization of the closure of metaphysics, is at the same time the apparition of a caesura or a hiatus between what Schelling comes to name at that time, towards the end of his life, as positive philosophy and negative philosophy. This caesura cuts through the immanence of the discourse of modernity by an unprethinkable decision. The German word is Entscheidung, decision. The result of a political theology, the result is a political theology or a negative political theology, to distinguish it from what comes to be called, at the wake of Carl Schmitt, political theology, a negative political theology whose essence consists of an eschatological delegitimation of any earthly sovereign power on the basis of theological foundation. To bring the whole hypothesis to a more concrete formulation here, the later Schellingian idea of actuality without potentiality, the idea that cuts through the immanent theodicy of history, opens up eschatologically to a thinking of exception without sovereignty, a thinking that may well be the task of our new millennium. It is my contention that the Schellingian theological political idea of actuality without potentiality is Pauline in spirit and inspiration. It draws more implicitly than explicitly so on the Pauline idea of kenosis that Paul develops in his letter to Philippians 2.7. The Schellingian deconstructive phenomenology or phenomenological deconstruction, if you like to say so, the task of which is that of making manifest the epochal closure of constitutive phenomenality, which is a paradoxical phenomenology, for it makes manifest which is foreclosed in the constituted order phenomenality. This deconstructive phenomenology can be said to have twofold tasks. Number one, on the one hand, to decisively put into question the fundamental metaphysical principle of Hegelian theodicy of history, namely the immanence of potentiality. For it is in Hegelian theodicy of history, so contends Schelling, the Occidental metaphysics comes to realize itself in its utmost possibility. This demands rethinking of potentiality or radicalizing potentiality without abandoning it, and yet without making potentiality the sovereign referent or the hegemonic phantasm of the epoch of modernity, without having to make potentiality the legitimizing arcade of the epoch of modernity. Second point, this demands at the same time in a mood of reversal to the former, and yet transcending the gesture of mere reversal at the same time, that we think of actuality without potentiality, actuality in which there is no potentiality, a radical transcendence, infinity itself, an exception, like the Platonic good beyond being, that does not become in turn true. This exception, which doesn't serve as the legitimizing principle of hegemonies or the order of constitutive phenomenality, in turn cannot be understood as onto and theological ground of beings, whether as nature or as reason or as something. An exceptional and unprethinkable exuberance of beyond being or over being, Übersein. If this is so, then the beyond or over being cannot be an ontological principle. It cannot even be taught as principle. The actuality exposes all potentialities of being, and the very potentiality of being, the being of potentiality, to the groundlessness of inscrutable, sublime freedom. This double task, to be carried out at the same instance, comes to introduce at the wake of Schelling the decisive caesura into the fundamental ground of Occidental metaphysics, that is, the caesura in the university of being. This led Schelling, foreshadowing Marx, Nietzsche, Heidegger, and also Kierkegaard to make the gesture of what you can say, borrowing the word from Marx, the exit, that is Ausgang, from of philosophy. Philosophy cannot think actuality as actuality, that is actuality without potentiality, which is neither mere potential actuality nor a representation of actuality. In fact, Schelling makes not just one gesture, but multiple gestures, often in unforeseeable and unpredictable manner, given the complexity and immensity of the task. All throughout his long career, Schelling seems to have been involved in this gigantic discourse, as Heidegger beautifully brings out, between the undeniable claim of an individual freedom and, on the other hand, an equally undeniable attraction to our system. The result is, so Heidegger contends, is a failure. But it is this failure, rather than Hegelian success, that seems to have been far more profound consequences for us today. In more than one way and many different and subterranean ways, this failure has never ceased to haunt the destiny of thinking to come, opening the closure of metaphysics to its outside, which will never be recuperated once more. Carl Schmitt erects his discourse of political theology in a book of the same name, published in 1922, against the immanent metaphysics of history, on which Hegel grounds his philosophical discourse of modernity. Schmitt argues that the many fundamental concepts that the metaphysico-political discourse of modernity deploys, and Hegel is the best example here, are nothing other than secularized version of what are primarily theological concepts. By secularizing the theological concepts and thereby immanentizing them, the Hegelian metaphysics of history has liquidified and neutralized the apocalyptic sting of transcendence. The result is a loss of auctoritas, the very place of sovereignty, and thus of political itself, that is, of the very possibility of distinction between friend and enemy. And the result is the emergence of a whole technological apparatus of politics, where decision, which must be the prerogative of sovereign power, is made impossible. It is against this technology of politics, or rather, technological neutralization of the political, of which the secular liberal parliamentary democracy is the best example for Schmitt, that Schmitt introduces his politico-theological concept of sovereignty, which is the exception of decision, or the decision of exception, which exceptionally, by suspending the constitutional order of the law, brings a new legal order into being and bestows on it the legitimacy that it demands. The logic of sovereignty is then somewhat a paradoxical logic. The sovereign legally, that is, by using a certain specific article in the Constitution, suspends the order of the law in a sovereign decision on a state of exception. Such paradox can only have, so Schmitt continues, a theological analogy, which is that of miracle. Schmitt then grounds his political concept of sovereignty, the sovereign being the figure of catacomb, which is a Pauline conception, who restrains the anarchy erupting from below on the Catholic theological principle of analogia antis, the analogy between the divine sovereign above and the earthly sovereign in the profane order. The Schmittian political theology thus introduces the theological notion of transcendence through a critique of Hegelian immanent theodicy of history, only to legitimize the earthly political sovereign figure on a theological foundation, and only to reintroduce the legitimizing political order based on meat, that is arcanum. To great politics belongs the arcanum, so Schmitt says. The Schmittian political theology is a logic of sovereign power on a mythic foundation. The double gestures of Schellingian deconstruction, complex as they are, while radically putting into question the immanence of Hegelian theodicy of history, so Carl Schmitt also does in his own way, thinks of an exception which is nevertheless without sovereignty. Following Jacob Tauwe's, we may call this as a negative political theology, as distinct from Schmittian political theology. The actuality without potentiality that Schelling thinks is neither the actuality of the concrete political order that Schmitt speaks of, and which is what makes him distinguished from Hans Blumenburg, which is a thinker of metaphor, nor is it tied to the nomos of the earth. It doesn't have any analogy with any order of potentiality. Like the Pauline idea of kenosis, the exceptional actuality of Übersein, in all its exuberance, empties out all the attributes of potentiality that fascinate our gaze with its hegemonic phantasm. It opens up by radically suspending the order of worldly nomos to what Rainer Schumann would call the singularization to come, where the hegemonic principle wiederseving, uncoupled from the law of koinon, that is common. This mode of thinking, which comes to Schelling via Meister Eckhart, consists of a distinction made between God as the principle of arche of beings, which is the hegemonicon, and on the other hand, the idea of Godhead without sovereignty, which is without principle or without arche. We must learn to exist without principle and without arche. So these are the lines from Angela Silesius. The rose doesn't have a why, it blossoms without reason, forgetful of itself, oblivious to our vision. Between Godhead, whose exuberance unbethinkable is beyond being, and God, this is the nature of God or the God of nature, God as the governing principle of the world. Between Godhead and God, there is neither analogy nor any emanation, which is the Platonic idea, but an irreducible abyss. The political theological principle of analogy antis cannot explain the abyss of the difference in God himself, not to speak of any possible analogy at all between the exception of divine and any earthly sovereignty. Only by a rigorous mortification of our will and all forms of egotism is it possible to participate by gratuitous grace in a beatitude to come, which for Schelling is the eschatological event par excellence. The essence of religion and the fundamental vocation for philosophy, in two different ways, lies in this infinite task of mortification of any earthly claims to sovereignty. Schelling here translates in his own thinking and in his own manner the Eckhartian kenotic idea of Galatian height. Only he who has come to the ground of himself, so Schelling writes, and has known the whole depth of life, who has once abandoned everything and has himself been abandoned by everything. The crucial word is here abandonment, Gelassenheit, that even Heidegger, following Eckhart and Schelling, makes the decisive word for his later thinking. We must abandon not only the world and empty out all worldly attributes, but even God. God, insofar as his mere nature, as the mere ground of beings. God as no more than the nomothetic and the monothetic ground of worldly existence. The glory of the Lord is kenosis. This is the infinite paradox. This infinite paradox, which is the paralysis of worldly potentialities and the vertigo of thought, is the very essence of religion and also of philosophy. In two different ways, they are oriented toward the event to come, namely the infinite and gratuitous gift of beatitude. What arrives as an eschatological event and as pure generosity infinitely exceeds not only the totality of beings, but of being itself. Hence, there is not only no possible analogia antis, analogia in italics, no possible analogia antis between two orders. The Godhead is not even antis at all. Antis means being. The ontological constitution of metaphysics has come here to a decisive failure. Eschatology then is the heart of religion. Understanding religion eschatologically, thus Schelling carefully distinguishes it as early as his lectures on the philosophy of art of 1804 from myth. Religion, or better, the eschatological event to come, interrupts the mythico-political foundation of worldly order and empties out canonically any sovereign claims of worldly potentialities. And hence, the myth religion is not arcana. The subtraction or emptying out is also an infinite excess over potentiality as such, which, unlike the worldly order of mytho-political order, is not an auto-constitutional origin of the nomos, but is love. Love doesn't rule over life, but violently imprisoning us in the cages of necessity, but places us in radical freedom. The politico-theological apparatus of the worldly order, mythically founded, is eschatologically burst open and is rendered non-autochthonous and non-sovereign, and is exposed openly to the death which exists eschatologically exist, eschatologically and ecstatically without potestas, namely to the actuality without potentiality, to the exception which is without sovereignty. As early as 1804, Schelling decisively puts into question the politico-theological consequences that arise from the new Platonic idea of emanation as the generative principle of the world. Plotinus explicates the generation of the phenomenal order and its relation to the origin as a continuous diminishing of the absolute light. But this way of understanding eternal birth of the phenomenal order and its relation to the absolute doesn't serve to explain satisfactorily the very possibility of radical evil, because, so I quote, "In the absolute world, there are no confines anywhere, and just as God can only bring forth the real per se and absolute, so ensuing effulgence is again absolute and can itself only bring forth something akin to it. There can be no continuous passage into the exact opposite, the absolute privation of all reality, nor can the finite arise from the infinite by decrements." So, quotation close. Only by the idea of an irreducible distance or remove, affall, which means apostasy, that is falling away, can serve as the explicative principle of not only the coming into being of the phenomenal order, but also the very possibility and actuality of radical evil. The Gnostic Kabbalistic in inspiration, which is further intensified through his reading of Jacob Boehme, the idea of falling away makes impossible any attempt to embody the divine on the immanent plan on the world historical politics, for it undoes in advance any possible analogy between the absolute and the phenomenal order. Not only does Hegelian immanent theology of history, but also the Smithian political theology of transcendence receives here a decisive undoing. Schelling elaborates the antinomic idea in much more detail in 1810 private lectures at Stuttgart. Emergence of the world is not explained by the generative principle of continuity, but by divine unprethinkable decision. By fundamental decision or separation, the world comes into being that sets apart being, that is, das Seiende, from being Sein. The emergence of the world is set apart from the groundless foundation. Such must be the divine freedom, which by constriction or withdrawal of itself, more out of an abyss of love than out of divine potestas, let the world come into being. That is to say, divine abandonment I put don in italics, donation, gift, divine abandonment of sovereign power and abounding love, given in pure donation, is the origin of the phenomenal order. The coming into being of the world, which in a sense is non-divine, without which there cannot be any world, where any is in single quotation mark, where any is also in a sense non-being, lies less in the overwhelming and majestic divine power, but in an unprethinkable renunciation of divine force, so that creaturely being be. The divine empties itself and subtracts its own sovereignty, so that the phenomenal order, which is in a way outside divinity, may come into being at all. To say in other words, Godhead impotentiates himself and reduces himself to non-sovereignty by rendering himself weak and fragile, so that something outside himself may be, and that something whose being is, in a way, is such that its very being is lone. As such, no being in the worldly order can claim for itself autochthony and aboriginal existence. As lone being, whose very being is lone, and to that extent is non-being, any being in the worldly order, even the earthly sovereign figure, is that whose possibility is never actualizable. Hence, the infinite veil of melancholy of all earthly creation. Actuality, where there is no potentialities left, does not belong as capacity or possession of any worldly being. It is the consummate fire, where any sovereign claim of the worldly power is burned and annihilated, not by the violence of divine potestas, but by the divine violence of love, which, while annihilating, also redeems it. Here is at war not only the Heraclitean fire, but also the Pauline opposition between the spirit and the letter and pistis and nomos. The event of the fall marks, so Schelling continues in 1810 lectures, the breakages or fissures into the nexus of beings, God, man, nature. The jointure of beings is disjoint. This disjointure is the origin of the historical order, the unredeemed state of destitution and evil, which has its analogy in the realm of nature, its sickness. What sickness is in the realm of nature, evil is in the order of history. As Stanislas Berton rightly points out, the Schellingian phenomenology of nature is here Pauline in inspiration. Nature is the order passing away, and in fallen and unredeemed state is groaning and crying for redemption. As the order that cannot ground itself on its own immanent foundation, the apostatic state of history is the realm of mere passing away and transiency. It is what must anyway, by the very logic of its origin, pass away and is passing away. No figure, no figura in the apostate order of world historical existence can claim sovereignty without ultimately having to pass away. It is here we see the Schellingian theological political reduction of the state and the church. The state is the mortal being's impoverished attempt to supplement an absolute impoverishment, namely the link or the disjointure that is broken among beings as a consequence of the fall. As such, the state is, like anything in the profane order, transient. It is this supplement that forcefully tries to affect the lost unity by always making legitimate use of power, which is the source of violence. Far from seeing the state as a figura of the absolute, the state is thought here as precarious and fragile, which is the order of non-being, and precisely thereby it being dangerous and tyrannical. The evil of the state lies not in its power of being, but in its malicious, devouring hunger for being. This totalizing tendency is the intrinsic logic of its very non-being. The state is necessarily and potentially, because it is ruled by power alone, unjust and tyrannical. That means any worldly regime ruled by any earthly sovereign power is always wrong and is always bad. What the state is in the external realm, the church is in the internal realm. An attempt to supplement the lost unity, the lost nexus among beings. The insufficient and precarious character of the state, which is instituted as a supplement of the lost nexus of beings, demands the second revelation to restore the lost unity. Here Christ being the mediator between God and man, himself God-man, dying the most ignoble death on the cross and bearing the intolerable suffering and evil only to redeem the unredeemed condition of the fallen state. So the church is the immediate consequence of the second revelation. But insofar as the church, in the process of its historical evolution as institution, takes part in negotiation with the worldly potestas and allies itself with the state, it forgets its initial eschatological impulse, that is the burning desire for the end of unjust war and for the freedom from earthly ties, that is both ties from both the sovereign power of Roman Empire and the family ties of Oikonomia, and becomes just like any worldly institution. The church here becomes the very theological foundation of sovereignty. The Schellingian deconstruction of the politico-theological legitimation of worldly sovereignty is, insofar as it is nowhere more explicit as here, far from deifying the profane order of the world historical becoming, and far from seeing the modern state of Prussia as embodiment of divine vision, Schelling argues contra Hegel, the separation of theological from the political realm. This separation alone can redress the political tyranny and the horror of universal domination. So I quote Schelling. In surveying the most recent history, which with good reason is said to begin with the arrival of Christianity in Europe, we note that humanity had to pass through two stages in its attempt to discover or produce a unity. First, that of producing an internal unity through the church, which had to fail because the church simultaneously sought to become external unity, and eventually attempted to produce external unity by means of the state. Only with the demise of hierarchical systems has the state attained its importance, and it is manifest that the pressure of political tyranny has increased ever since in exact proportion to the belief that an inner unity seemed dispensable. Indeed, it is bound to increase to maximum intensity until perhaps upon the collapse of these one-dimensional attempts of humanity will discover the right way. And therefore, again he says, God, however, as identity of the highest order, remains above all reality and eternally has merely an indirect relationship. If then, in the higher moral order, the state represents a second nature, then the divine can never have anything other than an indirect relationship with it. Never can it bear any real relationship to it, and religion, if it seeks to preserve itself in unscattered pure ideality, can therefore never exist even in the most perfect state other than esoterically in the form of mystery cults. Quotation close. Here lies the essence of Schellingian negative political theology. Religion, eschatologically understood, is the promised religion, the religion to come, which refuses to be embodied in any given order of worldly hegemonies. And again Schelling says, whatever the ultimate goal may turn out to be, this much is certain, namely that the true unity can be attained only via the path of religion. Only the supreme and most diverse culture of religious knowledge will enable humanity, if not to abolish the state outright, then at least to ensure that the state will progressively divest itself of the blind force that governs it and transfigure this force into intelligence. It is not that the church ought to dominate the state or vice versa, but that the state ought to cultivate the religious principles within itself, and that the community of all peoples ought to be founded on religious convictions that themselves ought to become universal. Quotation close. This caesura that Schelling explicitly introduces between negative and positive philosophy in his Berlin lectures 1841 to 1854, from that the deo nil potentiale I have used, though the germ of this distinction can be traced back to his incomplete magnum opus, De Welt Alter, The Edges of the World. This caesura is based upon the distinction that he makes between quid said, what a being is, quod said, that it is. While quid said, in its infinite potentiality or capacity to be, can be grasped, that is greifen, by the power of the concept begriff, which means grasping or seizing. The concept seizes and grasps. Quod said refuses the potentiality of the concept self-grasping. Here is Schelling's decisive confrontation with Hegelian ontological foundation of metaphysics. The Hegelian concept of the concept, the absolute concept as infinite negativity, where the negation arrives at the absolute by dialectical self-cancellation. The Hegelian concept of the concept can grasp in its auto-grasping only the dunamis, that is immanent automorphism of being in its infinite potentiality to be. The metaphysical violence of the Hegelian concept in its power to be, being as potentiality, that is its whatness, quidness, quid said of being. The concept determines by negation of the negation, by negating the negation, in an immanent movement of self-cancellation of the negative, only the essence, the whatness of being. But immeasurable actuality of being, the das, that is the that, in all its exuberance, refuses the measure of the concept. For it doesn't need any potentiality to be. The former, so Schelling says, the former, the answer to the question what it is, accords me a sense of the thing, or it provides that I understand the thing, that I have an understanding or concept of it, or have it itself within the concept. The other insight, however, that it is, does not accord me just the concept, but rather something that goes beyond the concept, which is existence. This actuality of existence, which is neither the telos of an immanent movement of the negative, nor condition hypothetic, if being were to exist, hypothetic. The actuality of existence, which is neither the telos of immanent movement of the negative, nor condition hypothetic being, is, rigorously speaking, not even being, but beyond being, Übersein, the pure unconditional generosity that exists prior to potentiality, that is to be, and that groundlessly keeps the very order of being open to transcendence. This transcendence of actuality cannot be determined to have resulted from an immanent movement of autogenerative negation. This was Hegel's logic. For one cannot conceive the radical positive as the end of an autogenerative movement of negation. What Hegel's logic can achieve at the end of autogenerative movement of negation is only the conceptual logical actuality, that is a potential actuality, which is still only conceptual, while the radical actuality without potentiality is still outside the telos, because it is always already, that is future anterior, at the very beginning of the movement, excluded from immanence of potentiality. This is why Schelling calls it exuberance and unprethinkable. What Hegel's system can achieve at best, given that even concept can have movement, according to Hegel, what Hegel's system can achieve at best is only a conceptual movement, is what results from self-cancellation of not. That is, what is still a not, do at a higher degree of making explicit of what is an immanent potentiality. If it is positive, it is still a potentially positive of what Aristotle graphs much more profoundly than Hegel. Thus, Aristotle renounced the das, that is the dead, the God seed, from the purest fire of rigorous analysis. What returns in Hegelian self-cancelling movement of not is the circular return of potentialities, while the exuberant excess of the immeasurable actuality interrupts or disrupts the circular return of potentiality and exposes it to what exceeds its closure, to the actuality without potentiality. The mythic violence of potentiality that returns in ever new mood to the same is radically interrupted and is burst open apocalyptically to the radical outside. The horror of the eternal return of the same in its vicious circling and recircling can only be redeemed by an arrival of that which is absolutely heterogeneous, which doesn't need any potentiality to exist. It must radically suspend the mythic foundation of potentiality that constitutes the law. From Walter Benjamin's famous essay, The Critique of Violence, we know that the law has mythic foundation. This is why Benjamin calls the violence that erupts from the force of the law, which serves the sovereign power, as a mythic violence, against what Benjamin welcomes, the divine violence, that alone redeems us from violence without bloodshed. This divine violence, which paradoxically is without violence, is messianic religion, to be distinguished from the mythic constitution of worldly nomos. This messianic has to do with the exception, and here Benjamin confronts Smith without naming him, that doesn't become in turn rule, and is thus an exception without sovereignty. This is why Schelling distinguishes religion, eschatologically taught, from myth. When religion appears, there occurs the withering away of myth. By suspending the mythic constitution of the law, the eschatological event releases us from the realm of necessity. That is, necessity which moves in circular return of potencies, and releases it to freedom. We know that Schelling makes the thought of freedom the alpha and omega of his philosophy. Freedom here is the eschatological principle which he thinks in a Gnostic Kabbalistic way. Ernst Bloch, whom Jürgen Habermas calls the Marxist Schelling, takes it up and transforms it in his own theological political critique. The event of eschaton is the innermost axis around which the historical moves, which is to be distinguished from the mythic. This eschatology of history, predicated upon freedom, is a qualitatively different vision of history than the vision that constitutes the Hegelian theology of history. Later, in Kierkegaardian eschatological Christianity without Christendom, Kierkegaard, who wants, in a quantum leap, to bypass 1800 years of Christendom, to be contemporaneous with the apostles, this Schellingian reconstruction of theology finds much sharper tone. The fundamental arcade of modernity, the modernity whose fundamental concepts are secularized version of theological concepts, is decisively put into question by Kierkegaard in still another manner, following Schelling. In another manner, following Schelling, Franz Rosenzweig, in his monumental The Star of Redemption, messianically puts into question the whole politico-theological principle that moves the Hegelian world historical politics. In all these instances, we see at war the Schellingian attempt to think the exception, which he calls actuality without potentiality, that is, without sovereignty. The exception of actuality suspends the mythic constitution of the law and thereby delegitimates any attempt on the part of earthly sovereignty to legitimize itself on theological foundation. True to the spirit of Meister Eckhart, whom he follows, the Schellingian distinction between God and Godhead, a distinction dubbed here heretic by the official Christendom, preempts any politico-theological analogy between the worldly realm of nomos and divine exception. One cannot fail here to remark here the Pauline inspiration once again, this withdrawing of step from the whole worldly order of nomos because it is only the order of passing away. And we remember that Walter Benjamin, in a similar spirit, calls this kenotic eschatology as the world politics of nihilism. As Heidegger rightly remarks, Schelling has remained and will remain the most unique and the singular thinker of the West. If the arche of reason constitutes the hegemonic phantasm of the epochal condition of modernity, then by opening the principle of reason to that which exists ecstatically without a why, Schelling destitutes the hegemony of modernity. Actuality without potentiality cannot be grasped, unlike the essences of entities, by any principle of reason. And we have seen here how Schelling, in the opposite front, equally destitutes the politico-theological exception of legitimacy that threatens to become the rule. Irreducible to worldly potentialities, the sovereignty of divine actuality is at once a kenosis, that is, non-sovereign. Without this, even the emergence of phenomenal order cannot be explicated. Only by abandonment, that is Galatian-like, of worldly potestas and by rigorous mortification of the will can a mortal participate in the eschatological beatitude, which is the highest vocation and the highest gift for the mortals. This mortification is the fire that does not annihilate us, but redeems us through its work of purification and releases us from the cages of the world. The fire of exuberance beyond being is the good in capital. Good which precedes even the distinction between good and evil. Already in 1809 essay on human freedom, Schelling elaborates this fundamental and unique thought of his. To participate in the highest gift possible for the mortal, which as gift exceeds any economy of the worldly order, it is possible that all the worldly attributes must enter destitution. It is necessary that all the worldly attributes must enter destitution. As Eckhart says, so does Schelling in the following, that one must abandon even God. I conclude with Schelling's lines. He who wishes to place himself in the beginning of a truly free philosophy must abandon even God. Here we say, who wishes to maintain it, you will lose it. And who gives up, you will find it. Only he who has come to the ground of himself and has known the whole depth of life, who has once abandoned everything, as has himself been abandoned by everything. He for whom everything disappeared and who saw himself alone with the infinite, a great step which Plato compared to that. These are the favorite lines of Schelling, Schelling's lines of favorite of both Heidegger and philosophy.